Hey, what's up, guys? I'm back for another video to talk about fantasy football again. So for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the starts and sits for week two. I'm going to kind of do it in a comparative way, kind of like I did the last time that seemed to work. And so this one's going to be kind of like going through sample rosters, and I'm going to do another one on right before game day, probably Sunday morning is when it'll come out. So comment below if you want your questions to be answered on the show, and I'll post a video for Sunday so that way you can get your picks ready for week two. So this video is going to be kind of previewing that a little bit, and then I'll get into it a little more with some comparisons. So, but first of all, we had a game last night. It was Tampa Bay and Carolina for the second Thursday night game of the week, and I'm going to kind of go through my key points with that game from what I noticed. First of all, from watching that game, I'm really concerned with Carolina's offense in general. I don't know what's wrong with Cam Newton. He's the offense is just revolving around Christian McCaffrey. Cam Newton's really not expanding the field much or anything other than DJ Moore and Greg Olsen. Didn't really have a whole lot of other involvement with from the other guys. And it's concerning going forward. Especially since ever since they've seemed to have gone to Norv Turner as their offensive coordinator, things have really the offense is not really got improved at all. I feel like it was going well for the first couple games last year, and then since then it's I don't know what the issue is. But anyway, I'm concerned with Carolina's offense moving forward, but I'm not giving up on their players yet, and I'll kind of get into that in a minute. But what I am concerned about is O.J. Howard. Man, I was so high on O.J. Howard going into the season. I don't know what's going on with him right now. They said he had an ankle injury going on, and he didn't play, or he was gonna play, but then he's good to go for this one. He'll be fine. But literally, if you had played O.J. Simpson as your tight end, you would have gotten just as many points as O.J. Howard yesterday. Didn't even get a target. I don't know. But a lot of people are going to drop him after this week, and I would stash him, but I would definitely try to look into getting another tight end because for some reason Jameis Winston always goes to Cameron Brate over O.J. Howard, even though O.J. Howard is clearly the better player. O.J. Howard's games are almost always better when they had Fitzpatrick last year, so I'm giving him one more week to redeem himself, but I'm not going to cut him yet. But just keep in mind that he's going to be out on the waiver wires probably after this week because a lot of people are just going to be done with him. And that would be a good opportunity to stash him because he's a very talented player. But he's just, right now, he's just not off to a good start this season. The other thing I've learned from Tampa Bay is that it was looking after week one that the backfield was going to be split between Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, Ngumbawale, but 23 carries for Peyton Barber and a touchdown. This is his backfield. I'm not concerned about that split necessarily for Peyton Barber anymore. I think Peyton Barber looks like it's his offense. I think Ronald Jones, I ultimately think is going to have more opportunity as the season goes along to eventually take over that backfield. But for now, it is Peyton Barber's backfield, and that definitely helps his stock going forward to be able to have the type of game that he had today in terms of the amount of carries he had. The other thing with Tampa Bay, their defense is no longer a pushover defense. I thought they were going to be one of the worst defenses in the league since they lost Quan Alexander, Gerald McCoy. But for some reason, they're doing really well to start the season. They haven't necessarily played the best of offenses. They played San Francisco and Carolina, but enough weapons on both those teams to keep them both relatively low scoring. Carolina didn't even get a touchdown in that game against Tampa Bay. That's very unusual. The new coaching regime has definitely helped shore up that defense. So I don't think you can just look at Tampa Bay and say that that's going to be an automatic fantasy onslaught for whoever's playing them anymore. I think now they've actually got a respectable defense there. And then for Carolina, there's one player that I'm going to try to buy low right now, and another one I'm going to try to sell high. And the one I'm trying to buy low is Christian McCaffrey. If his stock is going to be as low as it is throughout the whole season, it's now because a lot of people are questioning Cam Newton and if he could control that offense. Christian McCaffrey did not have a very productive day in both standard or PPR. So a lot of people are down on Carolina right now, especially after that primetime game. Now is the time to try to take advantage of Christian McCaffrey, and it's going to take a lot because people know how good he is. But I mean, if you're gonna buy him on his lowest point, like now is pretty much as low as his stock can be, unless for some reason he puts up another game like this in the future in week 3 or something like that. And then a guy I'm trying to sell high is Greg Olsen, just simply because like I think he had like 6 catches for like 100 and something yards. Like that, Greg Olsen is going to get hurt at some point before the end of the season. I just foresee that happening because it just always happens with him at this point in his career. So, I mean, if you want to, I mean, honestly, like I think you could make a case for selling Greg Olsen for OJ Howard. That's a little extreme. I'd want another player in addition to OJ Howard. If I'm doing that deal, but like I like OJ Howard's honestly his outlook the rest of the season over Greg Olsen in spite of that production in that game. I just think that like I just don't see Greg Olsen staying healthy throughout the season. So anyway, so now we're gonna get into start and sit comparisons. So I'm gonna start with a few different rosters and standards. You're gonna look at the running backs, receivers, and flex. Now we're going to do that with PPR, and then I'm going to go into some streams that I like this week for QB, tight end, and defense. So let's start with this first team, and this is not the QBs. This is my Nicolas Cage-inspired Standard League team. So right now, like this team is hurting at running back. I've got David Montgomery and Phillip Lindsay as my RB1 and RB2, but then I loaded up on some guys on the bench. I picked up Chris Thompson on waivers. Gus Edwards is there, Justin Jackson, Darwin Thompson, Rashad Penny, and Tarek Cohen. So I've got a whole loaded backfield right now, but I do need to drop a few players to make room for a defense and a kicker. So who do I start among that group? Montgomery, Lindsay, Cohen, Penny, Thompson. So Chris Thompson or Darwin Thompson, Gus Edwards, so I'm probably going to drop, and Justin Jackson. So honestly, for this game, like I would prefer to sit Phillip Lindsay because I think that Chicago defense is legit and they just shut down Aaron Jones, who's a better player. He's not, and also with Denver, like you got the Royce Freeman threat going on. I'd rather sit Phillip Lindsay and probably sit David Montgomery too, just because I want to see more development in that backfield. Like I'm honestly like I would probably start Chris Thompson in this game because I think Washington is going to be down. I think that they're going to be thrown in a lot, which means they're going to rely on Chris Thompson in their backfield over Adrian Peterson. I think that potentially presents the opportunity for a touchdown, or at least enough receiving yardage through the air to make up for any yardage that David Montgomery could fail to put up. And then the other guy that I would start is Justin Jackson. Well, no, I would probably go Tariq Cohen in that situation because I think that like Cohen is going to have more explosive play opportunity in this game compared to the other one. Denver just gave up a lot of receiving yards against Oakland, and I think that Cohen is going to be the guy that's going to benefit from that because he's basically become a receiver in that offense, or at least based on the way Week 1 went. So I would actually do a curveball here and go Cohen and Chris Thompson. Wide receiver, so I already started DJ Moore in that, so that took away one of my positions. And then I have Keenan Allen, Julio Jones are my other 2 receivers who are in the flex, and that's pretty easy. I put Julio Jones in flex because he's got the later game, so if anything were to happen to him, I could sub him out for somebody. Keenan Allen is a guy that you want to start, and even though John Brown has a good matchup against the Giants, who's a guy on my bench, I would still go with Keenan Allen because that's just a better offense, like more consistent player in general. You want to go with that over a guy like John Brown, who there's a chance that might have been a flash in the pan game, although I don't think so necessarily. All right, so we're going to go to another standard team, look at his roster. So basically, like, I like this comparison because that way, like, people a lot of times say, like, start so-and-so, start so-and-so, start so-and-so, but then this is a more realistic way of like, looking at a roster and, like, comparing who you would start and sit if for some reason you have 4 receivers that they tell you to start all of them. All right, so This team is running back Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, Ronald Jones, who he left in his flex, which was stupid, and then Royce Freeman, Kalen Ballage are his other running backs. Man, I honestly like I would probably play Freeman over Ronald Jones, but that wasn't a very good play either, to be honest. So Aaron Jones has got a tough matchup against Minnesota, but of that group, I think you still have to play him. Marlon Mack has got a better matchup. That's your top running back this week. He's playing the Tennessee Titans, which, tough defense, but I think that Marlon Mack is going to take on a larger workload without Andrew Luck on this team. And I like his perspectives in this season and in this game. So Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, you start. You sit the other three guys. Ronald Jones, if he had sat him, which I don't know why he left him in the flex. Kalen Ballage and Royce Freeman. So, and then his receivers are Devontae Adams. You start him, even though he's playing Minnesota, you still have to start that guy because he's one of the best receivers in the league and he could explode in any game. You take that ceiling. Cortland Sutton is his other receiver. That's a tough matchup against Chicago. I really don't like him this week. Because keep in mind, they just shut down Devontae Adams. Like, if Devontae Adams struggled against that team, I imagine Cortland Sutton will as well. The other receiver is Tyreek Hill. Well, you're not playing him because he's hurt. And then Dante Moncrief, like, man, this guy's got to get some. This guy's got to shore up his bench. Like, he's got some real like bad options on his bench right now. So I mean, I guess you play Cortland Sutton if you're comparing him and Moncrief, but that's even a tough call as well. Like, I mean, Moncrief has a much better matchup, but he dropped like 3 passes in that other game. I think like if you want to go somebody else, like maybe like look at Deontay Johnson on Pittsburgh. I would probably like him over Moncrief, but I don't know. He's got to look and find some other receivers on the waivers that'll help him, like probably a guy like Randall Cobb or something, because I think that's a much better matchup. A guy who's probably still on waivers right now. I would play him over Cortland Sutton. And then his tight end, well, he unfortunately left O.J. Howard in and got a big fat 0. It's ironic because O.J. Howard's name is literally starting with a big O, which is like exactly the amount of points that he's putting up right now. Sorry, that was kind of a stupid joke. But and then his other tight end is Delaney Walker. So like what he should have done is had Delaney Walker as his flex, because like that tight end is better than his other backup options that he has. Like, and then he's got Kirk Cousins on his bench when he's got Baker on his team. Like, man, this is like an example of like you got to shore up your bench and like clear out, get some more like potential guys than people like that, or just basically like a lot of his players are just washed up and done. Let's take a look at this team in Standard. We'll do this team, and then we'll take a look at some PPR options, and then I'll go into the streams. So for Standard, remember, you're trying to go for more touchdowns, but in general, understand that like you're trying to go for guys that also get more yards, not necessarily guys that are, boom or bust, unless you're in a position where you're behind. You might need that to catch up to your opponent. So this guy's running back core consists of David Johnson against Baltimore. That's a tough matchup. And then Mark Ingram of Baltimore against Arizona. I think you play Mark Ingram this week because Arizona's run defense isn't great. Matt Breida with Tevin Coleman potentially out. I like that against Cincinnati. That's in his flex. And then his other one is Giovanni Bernard. But I like Giovanni Bernard too in case Joe Mixon can't play. So, I mean, the way I would rank that is Mark Ingram 1, David Johnson 2, Matt Breida 3, and Giovanni Bernard 4. But Giovanni Bernard isn't a bad play. Giovanni Bernard would be a better flex option than the way that last team had. Like, he should have had like I mean, hindsight is 2020, but he should have had Delaney Walker as his tight end and Giovanni Bernard as his flex in that if he had him. So that's how I would rank his running backs there. So now that let's not put Matt Breida in the flex yet. Let's leave him in there in case he's got better receivers. So he's got Juju as his wide receiver 1. I really like that against Seattle because they just gave up a ton of points to John Ross, which is like, maybe John Ross is coming around, but like that's a lot for a guy that's really not proven very much. Tyler Boyd didn't have a good game last week, but I see a bit of a bounce back against San Francisco. Michael Gallup is interesting. He had a very good game last week. Jamison Crowder, no, I wouldn't do that. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, no. Adam Humphries, and then McCole Hardman. I'm glad they brought up McCole Hardman because that is my sleeper wide receiver that, like, if you have him on your waivers, like, pick him up now because that is the guy that I think is going to potentially, like, pick up a lot of points in the absence of Tyreek Hill on that team. And he frankly, like, owners that like didn't get him last week got lucky because he only had like 1 point last week. Or he didn't even have a point last week in Standard. So so I think like you go with Juju Smith-Schuster and Tyler Boyd. I mean, if you're really far behind and you're trying to hit a home run, McCole Hardman is probably your best chance at that. But I think to be safe, I would actually go Michael Gallup over Matt Breida. Just looking at touchdown potential. And then, if Tevin Coleman is out, I would play Matt Breida. And then if he's playing, then I would play Michael Gallup at the flex. But Tyler Boyd and Juju are your players that you want to play. And this guy has George Kittle. So actually, like, since he has 2 49ers, like, I would probably go Michael Gallup at flex just to give him some options in case anything were to happen to one or the other. So now let's do PPR. So we're going to take a look at some PPR rosters and kind of make some predictions for those, and then we'll go on to the streams. So this team is Team A. Is he named that after that like Ed Sheeran song or some? That's just so stupid. Like, okay, so his running backs is Saquon. You want to play him like every week, no matter what, unless it's on a bye. And then his running back 2 is Darren Sproles. So let's see who else he's got on his team. He's got Joe Mixon, Jalen Richard. Honestly, I would play Jalen Richard over Darren Sproles because, I mean, like, Oakland going up against Kansas City, like, they're going to fall behind in that game. I see that Jalen Richard catching a lot of passes in the flat, in PPR especially, that's going to give you a lot of points. Darren Sproles is going to be involved, but then again, Eagles running backs, like, their backfield split is all over the place. Darren Sproles is more just a guy you pick up for the name and leave him on your bench, in my opinion. So I would go Saquon. Joe Mixon, if he plays, then you have to play him there. But then if he doesn't play, then go Jalen Richard and then Darren Sproles. Because I think Darren Sproles has more bust potential than Jalen Richard. Wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, T.Y. Hilton, Robert Woods, Marvin Jones, Anthony Miller. And yeah, so Anthony Miller leave on your bench. Why would you put honestly, like Robert Woods against the Saints, like, why do you have him on your bench in this game? Like, I mean, I think for this, like, you go, and that's tough because he's got some good receivers. I don't know. I mean, Robert Woods against New Orleans, like, that's going to have a lot of value there. But he didn't get a touchdown last game. Those are all very good receiver options for this week. I think that, like, I would actually lean Cooper on your bench, though, because you've got, he's probably going to draw Josh Norman, and he's dealing with a little bit with an injury, so they might go in the direction of Gallup more or Zeke Elliott. I think that game is going to be lower scoring than people anticipate. Well, no, I think that game could be a shootout, but I see that like Mari Cooper potentially being covered in that game. So I would probably go. My number one would be. My number one is Woods. My number two is T.Y. Hilton. My number three is Watkins, and then my number four is Amari Cooper. And those are so neck and neck. It's really hard to choose there. But those guys have to occupy at least the flex position. So I would go that. And that's not a bad problem to have. He's got some good receivers on that team, but he's just picking between them like that every game has got to be a headache. So let's go ahead and go to the next team here. We'll do one more PPR team, and then we'll go ahead and go into the streams. Well, I'll try to see if I can hurry, maybe do two. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, so comment below if you want your questions answered, and I will try to bring that into the show. And then that way you can have your questions brought up, and you can be mentioned on YouTube and be famous. I mean, well, then again, I'm not famous. I don't think that you're gonna get anywhere with that. But at least you get your comments answered, and I'll be able to kind of provide some feedback to the answers as well. So this guy's running backs. He's got Dalvin Cook. You want to play him, even though he's playing Green Bay, and they did well in the last game. Kerryon Johnson. I think you have to play him because of his position he was drafted in. And then Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler I would rank over Kerryon Johnson. I would go Dalvin Cook, Eckler, and then Johnson. And then I don't see anything that really warrants... Well, then he's got Devin Singletary, which is playing... He's playing the Giants. I would leave Singletary on the bench compared to those three, but he would be the number 4 running back, and the number 5 one would be Jalen Samuels, who's more of handcuff value at this point. So, and then his wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Stephon Diggs. He did not have a very good game last week. Josh Gordon. D.D. Westbrook. Albert Wilson, but he's questionable, and then Golden Tate is suspended. So, I would actually leave. So I would put Michael Thomas in as your number 1. You have to do that. I would actually go Josh Gordon over Stephon Diggs, and I really, in general, would not do that. But playing Miami, I think Josh Gordon is going to have a good game this week. I think Stephon Diggs, I would be cautious against Green Bay because they shut down the Chicago receiving corps with the exception of Allen Robinson. But then again, that's just because Chicago didn't play very well. But I would feel more comfortable leaving Diggs out and seeing how that offense develops because Diggs wasn't very much used in that first game. I feel more comfortable leaving Diggs on the bench and going with Josh Gordon. And then your flex is going to be Eckler, Johnson, whatever combination of that. And then this next team is going to be my last PPR team, and then I'm going to go to the streams. So, running back, Christian McCaffrey, you already played. Fortunately, didn't put up a good number for him, but you still play Christian McCaffrey every game anyway because that's what you drafted him for. Running back for Oakland is Josh Jacobs, and let me see what else he's got because I could see them falling behind and going more with Jalen Richard, as I talked about. Kenyon Drake, I'd rather leave him on the bench. Carlos Hyde against Jacksonville. It's interesting. Malcolm Brown against New Orleans. But Malcolm Brown, I think that's a good handcuff value, but I don't feel like I'd feel comfortable starting him this week. I think you probably go Josh Jacobs there compared to him. So Christian McCaffrey would be your number 1, but he didn't have a good game this week, so he's probably going to get surpassed. I think that you got to go Josh Jacobs in that situation because that's the most upside that you have. And then next would be Hyde, then Brown, then Drake. That's the way I would rank them. Wide receivers, so Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson. Deshaun Jackson, James Washington, DK Metcalf, and Randall Cobb. A lot of interesting options here to choose from. So Deshaun Jackson is, I think, coming off a good game. I think you might have to pick him there. Brandon Cooks I would play against New Orleans because he didn't have a good game last week, but he's playing them. Denver against Allen Robinson. I would not feel comfortable playing Allen Robinson. I think so. I would go Cooks 1, Deshaun Jackson 2, and then my next one would be, if you want to be more of a safe play, I would go Randall Cobb. But if you're going more for the home run play, go DK Metcalf. I think that would be the better option among those because DK Metcalf is playing the Steelers, and he didn't get a touchdown last week, but he got a lot of looks at the receiver position for Seattle. So anyway, so that's my comparisons for PPR and standard rosters. So now let's take a look at the streams that I like for this week. So at quarterback streams that I like, Josh Allen. He's probably picked up in most leagues, but in less than 60% of leagues, he's actually on a team. So pick up Josh Allen if you can because he's playing the Giants. They just got lit by the Cowboys. Matthew Stafford, I like that matchup against San Diego. I think that game's going to be a shootout. So conversely, if Phillip Rivers is there, I think that's a good pickup as well. I like Derek Carr this week against Kansas City because they're going to be playing catch-up the whole time and trying to pass a lot. So I think that's a good option for Derek Carr. And then a guy that might have been dropped in leagues is Jared Goff because of that type of game that he had, especially if they've got another more established quarterback. So if Jared Goff is there, he's got a good matchup this week against the Saints. I like that as a potential bounce-back game for him. Tight ends that I like. So Darren Waller, if he is still on your waivers by now, you have to pick him up because Oakland is going to be going to him a lot in this game, especially because, like I said, Kansas City going to jump out to a big lead. Oakland is going to be playing pass the whole time, trying to catch up. Darren Waller is going to be a big benefit factor from those catches. So is Tyrell Williams. So is Ryan Grant. Other players like that. Another one that I like, similar situation, is Mike Gesicki from Miami. I think that he's going to get a lot of passes because Miami is going to be behind this whole game as well. So I think Mike Gesicki's solid pickup. He's pretty much universally available on waivers. Vernon Davis is also interesting. He's playing the Cowboys, but that's only if Jordan Reed doesn't play. And if Jordan Reed plays, I wouldn't even pick up Jordan Reed anyway because he's already, they said he was healthy, and then I saw another injury designator for him, which is just, it's always the case with that guy. It's have you ever seen, the Operation Board game where, it's there's, 10 different things wrong with him? That's Jordan Reed. They could turn him into one of those, board games. Defensive streams that I like for this week. So, recent news that has come out is that Sam Darnold has contracted mono, and he will be out for a couple weeks. So that turns the New York Jets to the likes of the Trevor Siemian, who don't get too intimidated by that, guys. But then never mind, that's a joke. So, but anyway, so Trevor Siemian is now the Jets' offensive leader, and I think that that's a good opportunity for the Browns to bounce back. I think a lot of people dropped them after that game against Tennessee, but the Browns are a solid stream for this week because I think the Jets are going to struggle with him being out. They just lost Quincy Enunwa. They have suspensions at other positions on the team like Chris Herndon. I think the Jets, our offense is going to struggle this week. Baltimore is another good stream option, and surprisingly, in less than 60% of leagues they're owned. So if you have them against Kyler Murray and potential for interceptions, I would take advantage of that. Denver is solid playing the Bears, who didn't have a good game last week, and then Houston, they're going to be playing a 6th-round quarterback, Gardner Minshew, who that's another potential for a lot of turnovers as well. So I like that stream matchup as well. And then kickers, it's hard to predict stream kickers, but I really like the 2 kickers from the Seattle-Pittsburgh game, Jason Myers and Chris Boswell. I think both of them could have a good game because I see that game being a shootout. So anyway, yeah, that's my week 2 starts and sits for this week. I'm going to do another video that'll be released Sunday morning for you on game day. So comment below if you have specific requests, and I will incorporate them into the show for Sunday, so that way you're ready to go for week 2. So yeah, let me know what you think, and if you have any questions or start sit decisions, comment below. Thanks, guys. Bye.